All right. Here we go. We got an error. Let me give out. All right, let's do this again. Take 2. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's 3 prakim Rambam, Hilchos Naziros prakim Gimel, Daled, and Hey, 3, 4, and 5. Beginning with Naziros Perek Gimel, we're going to begin with the rule that when a person makes a vow of Naziros without articulating for how long, Stam Naziros is automatically going to be for 30 days. We will also learn that you can add to it. You can say, I'm a Nazir for 31 days. But what you cannot do is connect hours to the vow of Nazirus. It's minimum 30 days or 31, 32. 2 sets of Nazirus will mean for 60 days. But a Nazirus l'sha'os, we're going to learn about a concept of someone becoming a Nazir oilam. You can say it means a Nazir forever. We'll see exactly what that means. Hareini Nazir for 1,000 years is different than someone who says, I'm a Nazir forever, even though people don't yet live for the 1,000 years. And we're going to learn about the unique type of vow of Nazirus, if it's a Nazirus of Shimshon. We're speaking about Shimshon ben Manoach, as we'll see the unique, both Lakula and Lachumra, what type of Nazirus will that mean? Chavra Perek Gimel has 19 halachas. For people that are using the Chayena, we're going to page 198, beginning with halacha aleph. That's the foundation of this chapter. Stam Nazirus. In other words, when you don't specify for how long, Stam, I'm a Nazir, automatically you are a Nazir for 30 days. And Ketzad Misha, I'm a Hareini Nazir, I'm a Nazir. Ein pachas mishleshim yom. Afilo Amar, even if a person says Hareini Nazir, Nazirus gedoyla ad ma'oid, harbe ma'oid. I'm a Nazir for a very long amount of time, very long. Harei is a Nazir only for 30 days. When a person says a lot, long, it's all a relative term. Could mean that for that person, abstaining from wine, just that part, or not taking a haircut, or something very difficult. And for such a person, 30 days is a very, very, very long time. Not clear. However, halacha base, if the person specifies a time that's less than the 30 days, for example, a person says, Hareini Nazir for 1 day, I'm a Nazir for 10 days, I'm a Nazir for 20 days. He's a Nazir for 30 days. Because of this klal. The guy says, I'm a Nazir for 1 day. One could have argued, well, if it can't be for 1 day, then it shouldn't be at all. We don't say that. I'm a Nazir is effective, very much to what we learned yesterday. I'm a Nazir only from wine. Not only is it chal on the wine, it's chal for everything. Here it's chal, and the Rambam says, V'davar zeh goes not only to the last detail, but it goes to this rule that Stam Naziru Shloshim Yoim is a Mipiyah Kabbalah. Even though the Gemara says, Chodosh Yihya, it's one of the very few Gematrias you'll find. Yihya begematria 30, Yud and a Hey is 15, times 2 is 30. Elama must be that Rambam understands that to be an Asmachta, and the Halacha, based in on Gematrias, but that's the Davar Zeh is Mipiyah Kabbalah. Halacha Yimel. But the moment you were taking Nazirus for any time longer than 30 days, for example, 31 days, right? 1 and 30, or 40, or 100, or 100 years, then you can add to it. But you can only add days and not hours. Halacha Daled. So again, if you specify a time, right, that's less than 30, as we learned in halacha base, you become a nazir for 30. Hareini nazir shloshim yoyim. Hareini nazir shloshim yoyim v'sha'achas. I'm a nazir for 30 days and 1 hour. Then hareini nazir echad u'shloshim yoyim, because she'ein nazir m'sha'os. If you remember, as the Gemara says, it says Yimei Nizroi. Yimei v'loi sha'os. That's the limit. Okay, halacha hey. I'm a nazir from here until that place. What do you mean by that? So the Rambam says like this. If this person did not set out on the journey yet, that means 30 days. He didn't mean for the amount of time that it takes me to go on this journey. Why? Because this type of way of speaking, a very long nazirus from the here until there, and we already because he didn't specify a time, and we already had the halacha that if a person used these terms very long, a lot, very, very much, it doesn't mean more than 30 days. But if the person is already on his journey, if the journey indeed won't take him more, it will take him actually less than 30 days, then he's an usher for 30 days because of the cloud. Stam Nazirus, 30 days. But the so you are already on a journey, and the journey is going to take, let's say, 40 days. Then then we teach that you meant indeed the amount of time that it will take you to get to your destination. Now that you are on your journey, if it's 30 days or more, 30 days, no, not kamina, more than 30 days, that was the days that you meant. Halacha vav. Misha amar areini nazir shtei naziros. I'm a nazir. I'm obligated to observe 2 terms, or 3 or 4 terms of nazirus. Okay, so harei nazir keminyan she'amar. But what's interesting is when a person says I'm a nazir for 40 days, it's one nazirus of 40 days. Here, when the person says I am taking upon myself 2 terms, 3 terms, 10 terms, 20 terms, he has to keep all those terms. But every term, every one of those terms comes to an end after 30 days, with, as we'll begin learning, when you finish your term, you have to bring karbanos, your hair has to be shaven. We'll have prakim that deal with the pratim. Those steps must be done between each term and the other, even though there's no spacing. You go right away from one to the other. So then, call Naziros 30 days, but at the end of every 30-day period, you are obligated to be megalech, to shave your hair, and to bring the karbanos, and right away, you maschelimlois, Naziru Shaniya. Unlike if a person says, I'm a Nazir for 100 years, then it's one term for 100 years. Even if he gives a number that people don't yet live this long, he's going to have 100,000 terms of Nazirus. Nevertheless, not one, one and one, 30 days. Taglachas karbanis, 30 days, taglachas and karbanis, until this person passes away. The Rambam there speaks about a possibility for a person living 100,000 times 30. Whatever, you're nazar 100,000 terms, knock yourself out. You got to do it. Halacha zayin. I'm a nazar as many as the days of the year. So now you have to keep the days as there are days in the year. What type of year are we referring to? So the Rambam says that if the person specified solar year, which is comprised of 365 days, and again, we also don't interpret it to be a Naziros for 365 days. He meant 365 terms of Nazirus, which is 30 years, right? Because 365 times 30. 30 years. If it's 365 times 30 days, we'll have some more coffee. I think that means 30 years. That's what the Rambam is saying. No, it's not one for 365. It's 365 terms. 365 terms. Every term, 30 days, clear. At 30 years. Now, but every year break. Not every 30 days, the tagalachas and the korbanos. But if he said the lunar years, once you specify there's no chiddush, then you have to keep 354 terms of 30 days. But if you set stam a year, in other words, you said Yemois Hachama, you didn't say, Yemois Hashana, right? Not Chana, not Lavana. Then for a Jew, stam is 354. In our case, sets of 30 days. Why? Because when it comes to vows, we don't look that much for the halachic definition of a word, but it's how people use that word. And the majority, the Roy Shnei Achama, are 365, right? He's saying the majority because that's the homachloikis between Shmuel and Avada, whether it's precise. And even if it's precise, according to Shmuel, it's 364 and a quarter. It's more than 365. Forget about the nuance, which is it's really more detailed than that. It's broken down. The majority of the lunar years are 354, even though we know it's not that case, right? Right now, the system is that both the months of Cheshvan and the months of Kislev can either be Chassid, they can be Malay. So you have all three options, both Chaseders, both Malayas, one Chassid, one Malay. That's if it's not a leap year. Then you have a leap year. So you have all these options, but you go after the majority. So first of all, you go after the majority. That's explaining why the numbers are 365 or 354. And also, when the guy says Yemei Hashana, why do we say he meant the lunar? Because the aim koidim kol ha'am shana stam. The oilam, the people. Who are the people? The people are the people. The three guys in the mikvah, those are the people. The oilam zot bayos. Ella l'shnas alavana halachiches. Oimer arini nozer achasu mechze amanazir for 1.5. So what are we saying, guys? It's gavaldik. It's all the same. On the Zidus is 30 days. The moment you specify anything less than 30 days, it's not that those words are ineffective. They're very effective, but we don't listen to you. We extend it to 30 days. So 1.5 becomes 2 terms of Nazirus. Hadez and Nazirus. Hadez and Nazir stay Nazirus. 30 times 2. It's just like a guy that says, I'm a Nazir for 1 day. You say, Shkoyach, you're a Nazir. And the 1 day grows into 30 days. The half grows into the whole. Amar Hadeni Nazir, V'yoim Echad. Guys, every letter is important. Hadeni Nazir, V'sha'achas. 2 terms. Hadeni Nazir, Ve'achas, 2 terms. Now let's get funnier. Hareni Nazir, Ve'achas, Ve'oid. 3. Hareni Nazir, Ve'achas, Ve'oid, Ve'shuv. 4. So you open up your mouth, boom, you gotta be careful. Now guys, the end of Ches, you're gonna break your head. So we're going to make it simple. We're going to follow the gears of the Lechem Mishnah that Taka says it's a mistake in the gears. Let me tell you how the Lechem Mishnah reads it, then it's easy to understand. This is the contrast. Hareini Nazir. Shloishim ve'echad yoim. I'm reading this the way the Lechem Mishnah reads it. Yeah. Shloishim ve'echad yoim. Then he's a Nazir for 31 days. And if he would say what our Girsa says, Hareini Nazir, Shloishim yoim, then it's 2 terms. Yeah, it's very hard to understand how the people that are speaking and trying to explain, right? Take a look at the halachatas. 2 sets of witnesses are testifying, each one giving a different testimony. Group number 1 says that this guy made 2 terms of a vow. He vowed 4 terms. The other sets say he vowed for 5 terms. Now, what does this guy say? It's important. He doesn't remember. Has a senile long moment. Don't forget the guys that said that he made a 5 term. You can say he didn't say 2. He said 5. The group that says he said 2 are basically saying he said 2 and not 5. So do we view them as contradictory witnesses? Because whenever we have Edom HaMakchishim Zed Zed, the general rule is one group knocks out the other. They nullify the other. We don't view it that way. We say that since included in 5 is 2, so therefore you have both groups are being moida that this guy took a vow of 2 terms, so that he has to keep. That's how you view it. Included in 5 is 2. And therefore everyone is saying that he said shtayim. I want to say further, even if this guy says, I made no vow at all, we won't believe him. For sure, if he says, Eini Yodei, even if he says, no, I never made such a vow, you forgot. Halacha Yud. You can't relate to that way, Bartsu. The years will catch up with you. You'll forget. Never made such a statement. You mean you're saying the truth. It means takazaya.
It If the 18 comes, so when was he a Nazir? Back when he said it?
Oh, so Rabbi Yaakov is adding another nuance. We're going to get to that in later prakim. When people make a vow, we're going to learn in today's third chapter, the whole Peirik Ches will be, you make a vow, and you're noyeg heted because you forgot. We're going to learn dinim about it. There's a beautiful dinim. And listen, once the Eidim will come, even if the guy is insisting, I didn't make it, if Beis Din says, no, Al Pi Halacha, you have to keep it, what do you do with all those days that you thought you didn't make it? You were annoyed. We're going to have a whole pedic about this. Okay, right. He made two terms. Whether you said it together. For example, he said, Hadeni Nazar Hayoim, right? Or I am two Nazirais, whichever way. So Mana Esar Shoinim Vetvesh Carbon, when he counted the first and he separated the carbon. Listen to this, guys. And now, as we began the first chapter in Nazirus, that's the whole point of the Rambam, that the vow of Nazirus is really halachically a Nazir. It's called a Nidrei Isur, B'chlal Nidrei Isur. You can be shoyl on Nidrei Isur. So he was now nishal al zois harishoyna v'hitim Nidrei. Listen to what we're saying. Also, loy rishoyna b'shniya. Based on the din that Chachamim are oiker the neder lemafreya, comes out that the first one was never there. Then he counted, he separated the karbanos for the first one. Now the she'ela transforms the first into the second. All he needs to do is, he already designated the karbanos, just bring them and you're good to go. Furthermore, even if he already brought the karbanos for the first one, and more, he shaved his hair, as we'll learn later, that the shaving of the hair is predicated on karbanos. They come together, means you can't shave your hair without karbanos. So he did all the steps now. Then nishal olah also loy deshoyna bashniya shaharei ein hashniya chala ela achar harishoyna. And now, since the harishoyna kiven sheitira, and the heter is retroactive, the first one is not there, which means the second vow was already chal, and you can.
What part hasn't been done? Or
no part, all of it was done.
Go a year later and then have it retroactively been be made fair? How does that work exactly?
It means like this, that if the first days were not done, see here in all of these cases, is that the first vow was already observed. Now we can transform it into the second. What would happen? That's the question, Danny. What is the Rambam implying? What would happen if the guy's in the middle of keeping the first? If he's in the middle of keeping them first, then you cannot say that those days will be good for the second. Okay, that's important. You'll knock off, you know what's that, you'll begin right away the second. It's dafka because you're not in the middle of the observance. That's when you can make the first into the second. Now we're going into a new category of vows. Not stam 30 days or many terms. So 365 times 30 years. Yes, as it does. But Misha Amar Areni Nazir lo oilam. I'm a Nazir forever. Or I'm a Nazir for all of the days of my life. Then this is a category called Harez Nazir Oilam. He's a Nazir forever, as we'll explain in a moment. But it's different. If he says, I'm a Nazir for 1,000 years, then he's a Nazir for the 1,000 years. Even though you can argue, well, no one can live 1,000 years, doesn't matter. But there's a big difference between using the term, I am a Nazir forever, versus you giving a specific time, even if it's a guzma, it's 1,000 years. Big difference. Halacha Yud Beis. Uma bein nezir oilam lenezir l'zman kotzuv. Sha'anazir l'zman kotzuv. If you specify a time, the din is you may not shave your hair only until you concluded those days. You made a vow of nezirus for 1,000 years. You are not allowed to shave the hair off your head for 1,000 years. As it says, you got to finish all the days. However, when you say forever, the beauty of forever is you don't specify a time. How many years is forever? You didn't say how long. So here there was a leniency, guys. All of these dinim were taught lo Moshe Messinai, so al pi HaKabbalah, that after every 12 months, if you say, oh my gosh, my hair is too much, you can lighten your hair. Lightening the hair does not mean shaving it all the way down to the skull. We're going to have prakim about that, but you can lighten the hair. You can take a haircut the way today you call a haircut. Once a month, once in 12 months, and we'll see. Im hichbet sa'arai mekel betar. Mekel means you lighten it by using a razor every 12 months. And if you opt to use this option, if you tap into this option of lightening your hair, then you have to bring the karbanos. Shalish behemis kishiyigalech. I just want to make a correction. I think I said yesterday chatos, oila chatos and asham. No, when a person concludes the days of their nazirus betahara, the three karbanos is oila, chatos, and shlamim. That's why we kept on mentioning that we stay that suffix nazirus lahakal because of the chatos. Asham also, not an asham, not a asham tali. A normal asham also comes for a sin. You can't just be menade a asham. Okay, Shenemer, as it says, how do we know this? Not from the scripture, not from Chavishim Shetay. We know this from Avshalom. That it says Miketz Yomim La Yomim. Right in Shmuel, we record that Avshalom every 12 months would lighten his hair. We know Avshalom was a nazir in the category of a nazir forever. How do you know that such a thing is permitted? You're not going to bring a raya from Shmuel. You have to. It's not written in the Chumash. It's not. It's part of the oral Torah. The Dover Zeh Lachem Pi HaKabbalah. Then it's Nizgale later in Nevi'im. Unazir Oilam Shenitma. Another din, if he becomes tamei. Hareze maybe Karban Tuma. That's where you have the Asham. We'll have to talk about this soon. And Umigaleach Tiglachas Tuma. Here we'll make a real shaving, like a Nazir Lisman Katsu that becomes tamei, as we'll learn in the later chapters. So now, guys, this is very important. So we began this chapter. Stam Nazir is 30 days. Or any time more than that. And if you said 40 days and a half, we always ain't Nazirus L'Shais. You can make a Nazir for 1,000 terms. Then at the end of every 30 days, you shave your head. If you say, I am a Nazir for 1,000 years, it's a one-term Nazirus in which until the end of the 1,000 years, nothing may be done. If you say the words Nazir Oilam, that's a special category. Mitzad Echad, you have to be a Nazir forever. Mitzad Sheni, after every 12 months, you can opt in, Mekel Betar, and if you are Mekel Betar, you have to bring the karbanos of someone who completed their days Betar. Now we're going to learn, so we have a term, Oilam, and now we're going to have the third category. What's the third category? Nazirus of Shimshon. You know what was unique about Shimshon? There was one of the three foundational rules in which he was not bound to. Shimshon was allowed to become Tommy LaMesa. That's how we killed the Plishtim. If he would not be allowed to become Tommy LaMesa, how can he kill our enemies? And mind you, even according to the Rashbi, Atam Kareim Adam, right? Rashbi only excludes going from Tumas oil. It's good to know that. So that's why, Eliyahu Navi can walk into a Beis HaChaim or to a cemetery of the Goyim because he's not touching them directly. But touching a mace, even by a goy's metame, b'mago b'masa. That's Tumas mace. So let's leave. Shimshon, lo yehoya nazir gomer. We're speaking about Shimshon Hagibir or Shimshon ben Manoyach. Okay? Sharei loy nadir. Now, why wasn't he a bona fide nazir? Because he did not take upon himself the vow. The Malach was the one that caused them to be separated. He's writing here from the word Tuma. Now, Tuma actually, ironically, doesn't mean what you think Tuma means. The Ketzad Hayadinoi, what type of behavior was Shimshon bound to? He was not allowed to drink wine, and wine doesn't only mean wine, it means any grape product, any grapevine product. He was also bound by the second rule, which is he was not allowed to shave his hair. However, let me add something that the Rambam doesn't write over here, that unlike Stam Nazirus, which is like a neder, and you can have she'ela, once you take upon yourself Nazirus, Kishimshin, you can never undo it. Shimshon had no option to make as a hataras nadarim. You know what? There is a status of Nazir Shimshon. I can take upon myself to be a Nazir like Shimshon. Then Hareze Nazir min hayayin. Uminat aglachas lo oilam, guys. You don't have this 12 every 12 months light in your hair. Shimshon had no such right. Because it's a separate category. And yes, so that's a new category. Now, if after he makes that statement, he says, and there was a guy, Shimshon, my Shimshon is not it was not a Nazir. So I'm saying, I'll be a Nazir like him. Meaning, I'm not going to be a Nazir. Then he has the right. He has the right to say this is what he meant, and Einoi Nazir. Misha Nodar Nazir Kishimshon. If you hear that Rambam is writing it, but it was Shimshon ben Noyach. Aside of the din that you're mutali tamil amesim, there's another din. Einoi Yachal Shoel al Nidroi. Nizir Oilam, you can be Shoel al Nidroi. Nizir Elaf Shana, you can be Shoel al Nidroi. Not Nizir Shimshon. Sha Nizir Shimshon. Hoysala Oilam. The reason, just another reason for that is because when you make a vow, you can undo the vow. If I, Hapesha Asar, Hapesha Hitra, so to say, who brought upon the vow on Shimshon? We Rambam just said a malach. So if he didn't do it, he cannot undo it. Even though I am extending myself to Shimshon, I am like Shimshon, but once I'm bound to Shimshon, just like Shimshon cannot do She'ela, neither can I. Or Keben Menayach, or like the husband of the Lilam, or like the one who uprooted the dalsois of Asa, or like the one whose eyes were poked out by the Pelishtim. Even though it's possible that such things were done to another person, but that is what he meant. But the Rambam doesn't have to say it. But the Rambam already said it. But if this guy says, no, I didn't mean that Shimshon, I met the other guy whose eyes were poked out by those Palestinians, then he won't be a Nazir. He has the right to clarify, but if he doesn't clarify, this is what he meant. Halacha Tazai. Shmuel Haramasi, just to know, the prophet Shmuel, referred to Shmuel Haramasi, was a Nazir Oilam, like Avshalom. And therefore, just like you can be maspis to Shimshon, you can connect yourself to a Shmuel. Hareni Kishmuel Haramasi, or I am like Keben Chana. Yeah. Or Keben Elkanah, or Kemisha Shisaf, the Agag by Gilgal. He was the one that killed Agag, that cut him up. Same thing. And now, in other words, guys, he could be Mekel Sa'arai if he chooses once in 12 months. He's not allowed to be Metamal Mason. I am a Nazir, Miloi Habayis, as this building is full. I am a Nazir as this building is full. I am a Nazir as this container is full. So now we have to ask him, what are you talking about? There isn't a stam here. It's so vague. If he says, I didn't mean that I'll be a Nazir for the rest of my life. I only meant to be a Nazir for a very, very long time. Okay, so then we already said very, very, very means nothing. For me, very, very, very means until the end of the hour. It means 30 days. The Imam, I don't know what I had in mind. I had in mind what I said. Then we make believe as if the house is filled with items that are of the smaller size. And for every little chardal bean, you got to keep 30 days. The Yanazir call Yamav. All right. Now, Yamav call Yamav means, I'm sorry, call Yamav doesn't mean terms. It means a Nazir Oilam, and therefore, and like we mentioned, the ever come nice of Kishar Nazir Oilam. That's the mean, Kip Maloi Bites. Allah Yudches. Haneni Nazir Kisa Areshi. I'm a Nazir like the hairs on my head, or like the dust of the earth, or like the sand in the sea. It's as if he said, I'm taking upon myself vows of Naziros, as many as the hairs of my head. Kiminyan afara aretz, kiminyan chaylayim, not Nazir oilam, terms of. So for every hair, 30 days. So now he keeps 30 days, shaves his head, brings the karbanos, counts again at 30 days, shaves his head. And he does that until he dies, because the Rambam is going on the presumption that there are more hairs on your head than the days of your life. Now, if a guy is like kereach mikan, he's very intelligent, so he became bald, and then maybe not, but whatever. It's just for every year you had. Oh, now the Rambam, whenever we said that you have two terms back to back, or 1,000 terms back to back, There isn't a hefsek b'ntayim, which means that after you shave your hair, right afterwards, you cannot drink wine, even on the same day, even a minute later, or you cannot be metam in the mason. In other words, the moment you concluded one, how do you conclude one nazirus? Karbanos and shaving the hair, you immediately begin the second. And therefore, you know what you're going to get malchus for violating which one, Danny? For violating the new nazirus. So once you took the haircut and you brought the karbanos, so now I'm not saying the last one because it's forever. Final halacha yutaz. Then he makes another statement. Then he makes another statement. He made three statements and then he ate the loaf of bread. So he's chayiv to keep how many terms according to how many statements he made. It's not a 90-day term. It's 3 terms of 30 days. So this was a very important pedic. Notes we learned about Stam Nazir Shloshim Yom. You can make many terms back to back. There's another Nazirus called Nazir Oilam, in which if you want, you can be Mekel Batar or Mever Karbonos of called Yud Beis Chodesh. And then you have this other category called Nazirus Shimshon. Now, if you make a Nazirus one term for 1,000 years, then you may not be Mekel Batar. Pedic Dalid. Now we're going to go into laws regarding the shaving, the taglachas. We're going to have fascinating cases where you have 2 terms that overlap with each other, not adjacent to each other, like we have been learning in the previous chapter. You're gonna learn clearly. We spoke it out. This is a foundational dinim that after your term finished, your 30 days was up. If you didn't do taglachas, which means bringing karbanas and doing taglachas, that term is not over yet. You're still bound by that term. You can only close it after you do these steps. And like Rabbi Yaakov mentioned, what happens if a guy makes a vow of Nazirus and he Pashat forgot, and he was noyeg, like everything is normal. And then he was notified at some point, do those days count? Because his violation was b'shoigeg, or because he was, we'll see all of these dinim in this chapter. Perikdalit has 17 halachas, beginning with halach aleph. So the din is tahara. The word tahara is important because we're going to learn in later chapters that if the nazir, b'shoigeg or b'mezid, becomes tamei l'tumas meiz, there's going to be a taglachas betuma. And I want you to know, when you make a taglachas betuma, then the karbanos that you bring will be on the 7th day of your tumah. It won't be after you counted the 7 days. In contrast, let's focus over here. You only bring the karbanos after you finish the term. When do you finish the term? 30 days. When should you bring the karbanos and shave your hair? On day 31. That's key. Yoim echad u'shloishim. However, if you did not bring it on day 31, on the 30th day was the day that you shaved your hair and brought karbanos, post facto, you're yotzeh, because there is a term in halacha called mixas hayom kekulai. But lechatchila, we want for you to only remove yourself from the nazirus after the 30 days are over, which means on day 31. Now let's go further. If a person says hareini nazir shloshim yom, right? Therefore, whether he says stam, whether he says 30 days, here, in other words, here, since he explicitly mentioned 30 days, we don't say mixas hayom kekulai, which is a halachic concept. And by nedarim, halech achar loshen b'nei yodam. 30 days means 30 days. You don't have the option, even post facto. Now let's go. Halacha base. Me should understand the zero is you made 2 vows back to back. So what do you do? And we said in the end of the last pedic, the second one begins immediately. When does it begin? It begins on day 31. So you close the first on day 31, and now day 31 counts for day 1, halkop, and therefore again lechatchila you're supposed to shave your head after the 30 days of the second. So you're going to shave your hair and bring the karbanos on day 61. What's the chiddush of the beginning of Beis? That day 31 is day 31, and the same day is day number 1. Now, what happens in the B'diavad case? If you shaved your head on day 30, which we said post facto is okay, if you didn't specify 30 days, And we just said that same day counts for day number 1 of the second count. So if day 30 is day number 1, when does your second term finish? It finishes on day 59. Then, and therefore, since you're supposed to lechatchila shave the day after, so the day after is on day 60. But here, if you shaved on day 59, weiter your yoitza. Same rule. It's like shaving on day 30. Day 59 is day 30 from the second count. He makes, now we're beginning with people that take upon themselves 2 terms of Nazirus. The first one was a blanket statement, I'm a Nazir, which would mean I'm a Nazir as of now. And then they make another statement, and I'm a Nazir when I will have a son. Okay? And he began to keep the first vow. And then a son is born. The son was born within the 30 days. The son was born prior to finishing the first vow. In this case, he finishes his vow. Don't forget, he made his vow first. And only then does he begin the 30 days for that second commitment to become a Nazir if he'll have a son. Now, guys, I want you to know something. That's all because he began counting. What happens if he did not begin counting his? You know, here he'll have an option. He can choose which one he wants to count first. There won't be a nafkamina, but you'll see soon what happens. However, if the order is reversed, guys, hold your heads over here. I'll come. He says, I'm a Nazir when I'll have a son. That was statement number 1, vow number 1. Then he right away says, and I'm a Nazir for X amount of days. You know, the point here is that here he was magdim, the vow, we will call this the Naziros of son.
Yeah.
He didn't have a son yet. So he began counting his Naziros. Yeah. And during his keeping his vow, which he made second, in the middle of it, the son was born. Guys, listen to this then. He will stop his count. I want to add something. He will only stop his count if he had 30 days. You'll get this in a moment. So let's say he made a vow for 100 days. He counted 70. Then he has a son. Here he has to stop. Why does he have to stop and right away go into the Nazirus of the son? Because he made the Nazirus of the son's vow first. Umoin es benoi, and v'achar kach choizer o mashlim esheloi. What's that mashlim? There's no Nazirus for less than 30 days. Mashlim will mean in the example that I gave, since he made a vow of 100 days and he only kept 70, that means he has a full 30 days left. Now he has to keep the next 30 days. You'll see soon that if the remaining days for his vow for him is less than 30 days, he has to keep it, but he has to keep it for at least 30 days. So some of the days he did prior to the birth of a son will, so to say, be nullified. In other words, what we're saying is, Nazirus achas. Lefikach. Why are we trying to say that they become merged together? That im nitma betoich Nazirus shel benoi. And when that happens, you have to recount. Not only do you have to recount from the beginning of the vow of your son, since the first days merged into the Nazirus of your son, so therefore, so I said, Hakoil means even the days you counted for yourself is going to be invalidated. Nitma acha Nazirus benoi, but if after you finished counting for your son, now you are in the final segment, you're complementing the days that you owe for yourself, then you become Tamei. You know why? Because after you finish the Nazirus benoi, you're going to take a haircut and bring karbanos. Even though you'll right away be chayiv to be mashlim your own. But since you made a taglachas, it made enough of a hefsek that if in the end stretch you become tamei, it doesn't knock everything away. It only knocks off everything until the prior haircut and karbanos. How many days do you have to finish your own? Like we mentioned, you have to have at least 30 days. If you still owe 30 days or more, perfect. Then when in Nazirus benoi, and just complete the days that you still owe. But the if nishan min Nazirus say less than 30 days, you have to have at least 30 days. Why? Because since at the end of this entire count, you will have to shave your hair, You just finished shaving your hair for the Nazirus that you took upon yourself because of your son. And there's a rule that ein bein taglachas letiglachas. You have to wait at least 30 days. So you need to have those 30 days. Now the Rambam will give numbers. Halacha 4. Again, the key here is that the vow of Nazirus B'nai was made first. When I'll have a son, I'll become a Nazir. Then he made statement number 2. And I am a Nazir for 100 days. He didn't have a son yet. So even though he made his own vow later, he has to begin with that earlier. And he began counting his Nazirus. And during the 100 days, the son was born. If he succeeded in going through 70, like we mentioned, after 70 days, the son is born, he goes straight into the 30 days for a son. And then, taglachas korbanos, and then he owes 30 days. Perfect. Or if he owes more than 30 days, even better. He lost nothing. But here's the key. If after he finishes counting the Nazirus B'nai, there's less than 30 days to finish the count of 100. So let's say there's only 20 days left. You know what happens? He has to be a Nazir for at least 30 days, which means that 10 days prior to the birth of his son, those 10 days will be nullified. He'll lose those 10 days. For example, he already made 80 days. Gavaldik. And now the son is born. So like we mentioned, okay, he stops. He doesn't finish the 100. Now with the next 30 days counts for the Nazirus of the son. And then he's Megaleah. Now really he should only owe 20 days, but you can't do a Nazirus for 20 days. He has to do 30 days.
He ends up doing 110 for the one.
Which means he does 110. The way that Rambam words it is that 10 days prior to the birth of a son, those 10 days are discounted. When him say mafsud mikoidem he volleyed 10 days. Shehem, what 10 days? The last 10 days. 70 adavlad, the chincha chayirtze bazeh. Halacha 6. Another concept where there's an overlap of vows of Nazirus. I am a Nazir after 20 days pass. So he makes the vow first, but he says this vow should only go into effect after 20 days. Then he makes statement number 2. Statement number 2, the statement came later, but the halois of the statement begins earlier. I am a Nazir from now for 100 days. How great is that? Guys, it's meduyak. In other words, the first statement is the first, but the first statement only goes into effect 20 days from now. Now, the second statement begins immediately. Same concept. He counts 20 days because the first Nazirus only begins in 20 days. So he counts 20 days for his second vow. And here he stops. Same concept. The stopping means he doesn't do anything. He can't drink wine. It merges. Now he begins to count. What was his first statement? I'm a Nazir after 20 days Samach. For how long? He didn't say. What did we learn in the previous chapter? Stam Nazirus, 30 days. So now you have to gavaldik. So now after 20 days, he stops. This second vow, he now keeps his first vow for 30 days. After the 30 days, now that he concluded that vow, which he made first, which began later, same thing. He's going to shave his hair. He's going to bring the karbanos. How many days does he owe? 80 days. However, and then he says, and I am a Nazir may atom. I am a Nazir beginning now. What does I'm a Nazir mean, Danny? Also 30 days. Same thing. So here, we don't say Moina Shloishim. He begins counting now 30 days, which is what? Which is the second vow. And he finishes the second vow. And then he's Megaleach Teglachas Tahana. And then he keeps the first vow, which was only to go into after 20 days. Question is, Danny, why do we say that? Because why don't we say as we're saying until now? Even though the first vow was unable to go into effect right away, but since you made it first, the moment it can be chal, it should be chal. Then, So how many days are left from the vow that you began Me'ata? Right? You already counted 20. How many days do you have left? 10. You cannot do a Nazirus for less than 30, which means you're going to end up losing all of the days. Nishanim is only 10 days. So in a case where all of it will be deducted, then we say that you get to finish the vow that you started. Statement number one is, I'm a nazir that will only begin after 20 days. Oilam, not Danny, not 30 days. A nazir oilam, beginning right now. So the first vow was for 30 days, which are only beginning in 20 days. You know what we say? Loi, chala, olav, nazirush, shenadar, rishoina. Wow.
What's the difference? I mean, he's a nazir forever, right? We're just about bringing korbanos.
Oh yeah, correct. And yeah, because if the first nazirus would be chal, then after 30 days, what would you do? Take lachas. Full haircut. A nazir oilam can never take a haircut. He can be mekel b'tad after 12 months. A big difference. Halachates. V'cheinim amar hareni nazir shimshin, but that only begins in 20 days. And then he says hareni nazir ma'ata. Now, guys, hareni nazir ma'ata the stam nazirus is only for 30 days. So now we say einoi migaleach lenazirus zois shenadar ba'achreina. Wow.
Because the Shimshin Nazirus kicks in after 20 and then he's done for life.
And he's done for life. Very good. Halacha yod misha amar hareni nazir yom echad. Let's name Yisase. Guys, I want you to know that ches and test, there's a whole lumdus behind it. And we're just learning halacha. The lumdus behind this is that whenever there's two vows and one, like at least in halacha test, Danny, you cannot be mefer nazir shimshon. You cannot nullify it. That's why it's a dominant. There has to be always a logic. Masha'ink and the other nazir, you are able to be mefer. That's why which one gets who's doicha who? The one that theoretically is made for the bull gets pushed aside. That's an halacha test. There's everyone has a lumdus. It has to do with whether you can be made for one or not. Halacha yud. Misha amar hareni nazir yom echad lufnei misasi. I'm a nazir one day before I die. So we say hareza azal lishlis biyayin uletam meyesim ulegaleach la'olam, because every day might be the day of his death, which means retroactively. Nazirus is chal the day before. Halacha Yud Aleph. Ha'omer hareni nazir b'yom sheben David. Boy, I'm a nazir on the day that Ben David is coming. So im b'choil nadar, if he made that vow during a weekday, hareza asar la'olam, because Mashiach could come every day. However, if he made that vow on Shabbos or on Yom Tov, and regarding Shabbos and Yom Tov, there is a machlokes whether Ben David can come on Shabbos and on Yom Tov. Because guys, we're not speaking about Elijah the prophet. We're speaking about Ben David. So there's many options for the coming of Mashiach. It can be something very natural. It could be when Bar Kokhba said he's Mashiach, it was not miraculous at all. But there's always the option of it being miraculous. Miraculous, including that Ben David is coming from some other place, and he's going to be traveling so quick that he's going to be going beyond the Tchum Shabbos, especially if Ben David is not from the living. And then the question is, that, you have to keep the mitzvahs. Is there tchumen lamayla masara tvachim? I know the Gemara speaks about it also regarding Elijah the prophet. Here we are applying the same question regarding Ben David. So if yesh tchumen lamayla masara, and if Ben David is coming from Gan Eden, then he can't call on Shabbos. So there's a doubt. There's a doubt in the Gemara about this.
We learn an issue also with kahanim. Like, how could any kohen ever have wine? Because they can't serve. But Mashiach comes, they have to go right to the.
In the Imamish indeed. We learned about we learned about that not by Nazirus, but if someone knows when their mishmar is, then they can drink wine other than on the week of their mishmar. But if they don't know when it is, then theoretically they can never drink wine. But takanasan, kilkolasan, zel takanasan, the psavarta with it. Okay, so he says that Shabbos and that Yom Tov they're mutter because we have a suffix. And what did we learn regarding a suffix? A suffix Nazirus lahakol. That's why. That I'm a spez. Shadavar Safik, im Yave b'Shabbos Yom Tov Yave. Maybe he could, maybe he can't. On the day you made the vow, lechalal Nazirus. Because I maybe be machmer, suffix, maybe Mashiach could come on Shabbos, because by Nazirus, the rule is suffix Nazirus lahak. Now the word is mikan ve'el chalal Nazirus, because on every single day Ben David can come. Now once the Nazirus kicks in, you can't say that next week Shabbos the guy can drink wine. The Shabbos Haba is also a suffix. Once Nazirus goes into effect, you can't remove it from a suffix. Suffix only prevents it from it going into effect to begin with. How beautiful. Allah Yud Beis. You finished your term. If you did not make what we call tiglachas tahara doesn't just mean a haircut, it means karbanos. And the haircut, you continue to be asir legaleach, to drink wine, and not only that, guys, I know that Rambam is going to make a statement and the next halacha will appear to contradict this. And if you did shave your hair, if you did drink wine, if you were tamei l'meis, even though you're on day 1,000 after the 30 days were up, you did not do the halachic tiglachas yechayev malkus midorais loik. Remember this, because there'll be a problem in a couple of lines. Halacha Yud Gimel Misha Nadav and Nazir. Person makes a vow. The Dima she'enon had he didn't think it was binding. He has Alzheimer's. He forgot. He doesn't know he made a Nazir. And because of you thought you're not a Nazir, you were behaving normally. You were drinking wine, as an example. And after a while, you shared, I made the statement, and I know the statement was not effective. And some scholar tells you, what are you talking about? That statement was effective. And you're chayv to be a nazir. So listen to these words, guys. What we're saying now is midoiraisa. There's midoiraisa, midrabanan. Midoiraisa, hare ze moina nishosha nada. Danny, all of the days until now are counted down from your vow. Kol hayamim alu. I was drinking wine. I'm an oinus. Hest. Elama. Umedivrei soifrim. Rabbinically, sheyina isur kayamim shenag b'meter. For those days not to be deducted from the days of your vow. For example, the Nog had to be for 10 days you're drinking wine. Guys, we're not speaking about Tuma. Tuma knocks off. We're speaking about you're drinking wine. The Nog Yisur Esrim Yoim.
What was his mistake again?
He thought, he made a statement, and he thought a statement halachically was ineffective for whatever reason.
Okay.
Then in the middle, he discovers a Talmud Chacham tells him, no, your statement was a banaf, it was a good statement. So guys, he for 10 days, he didn't keep his nazirus because of this mistaken halacha. For the next 20 days, he kept it. For whatever reason, when he finished the term, this is midrabanan. Now, 1 second. By the way, that's even Tuma, even if he was Matama, since he didn't know. The im shasa oigila chaynitma ba'aseres hayomim ha'elu. If in the last 10 days that midrabanan we add, what does he get? He gets makas mardus. What's the big kasha? I don't have an answer. I just know the kasha is, how come the Rambam write it? The Rambam wrote in Allah Yud Beis. We just learned this. Forget about when you had doubts. When you kept your days are over. If you don't do taglachas, that's probably what it must mean. If you don't do taglachas, then you're still chayv to keep it midoy raisa. Why is it makas mardus?
Yeah.
Because we're speaking about a guy that did taglachas, Danny, and he brought the karbanis wrongfully, midrabanan wrongfully. Then he gets makas mardus. It must mean that. All of the above only applies in nazirus mu'ata when you made a stam nazirus of 30 days. It's called a short term. Short term is the shortest term, which is 30. Here, even midrabanan, again, we're speaking about a person who didn't know that they're obligated to keep their vow. So a guy makes a vow for 10 years. And the whole 9 years and 11 months, this guy is noiketet because he thought the vow was not a vow. By the last 30 days, someone told me, you're kidding? You made that statement almost 10 years. You're chayiv. If he kept the last 30 days, he's good. But for him, like noig iser ba'atzmai, ein niskaken like klal. Wow. Okay, how great is that? Now, halacha it says zayin kol bezin sheniskaken lezevach hayoytze boy. In other words, a bezin that gets in touch with this person who made a vow, who thought his vow was not binding. And they let them know what we just learned right now. What did we just learn right now? That since you didn't know the vow was a vow, really midoiraisa, you're good. You know what people do with that, with this information? They begin to take all of their vows lightly. Or even worse, which is they don't even tell them that Rabbanan, at least you have to compensate for all those days. Or if they begin to tell them, you know what, I have a solution for you. Why don't you nullify your vow? Now you discover that you were drinking wine. Make a Pesach because Chacham was Oikel Mafreya. Menadin Oisei Bezdin Ahediyat. Such a Hediyat Bezdin should be put into a Nidui because people have to understand that vows are serious. Actually, we learned so many dinim in the previous segment of Hilchas Nedarim that there are many times that even though the neder is takanat a neder, a Talmud Chacham doesn't need she'ela for the Amma Aretz. You tell him you have to do she'ela. You know this. In other words, this is not something that should be shared lightly because it can create the misunderstanding. Big deal. You see, I didn't keep it. It's valid. I didn't know that. I'll be shoyel. Be careful with these dinim. Let people.
I'm saying that when should we be ostracized that basin when
in this case, I made a vow. I made a statement, and for some reason, I thought my statement is not binding, and therefore I'm drinking wine. And sometime in middle, I come and I'm told, "Oh no, your Nazirus was chal." The emes is all those days counted. Midoidais. If a bezdin tells me that, they're going to be put into an nidui. Because they're going to inspire me with a leniency. Bezdin will do worse. Most of the times, Bezdin will tell the person, be shoyal on your neder of Nazirus. And that's not a good approach. They should shout at the person, what did you do? You broke your vow. They should make the person, they should put a guilt trip on the person.
But in the end?
At the end, then they can help them. That's the point.
So Rambam's issue is with the basin that's like too quick to let them go.
They're mezalzel ben adorim. Exactly. Halacha Yud Zayin. Final halacha in the Speder called Isha Shenadra ben Nazir. And she completed all the days of her Nazirus. And she brought her korbanos. And one of them was already slaughtered and the blood was thrown. That means that she finished her Nazirus. And now the husband heard she didn't shave her hair. Why is that? I'll tell you that it's one thing. From when can a Nazir drink wine? Only from when the blood is thrown. They are mutter to drink wine even before the shaving of the hair. We'll have those dinim later. Why is the husband allowed to be made for the neder of Nazirus of his wife? Because of the inui of wine. So now that she's allowed to drink wine, there's no more inui nefesh. Not being the Kamala Mason is not called the inui nefesh. It's not dvarim beinoi lebeino.
Okay.
So when it can only be made fair when there's an isur on wine. The moment she already reached the point where she's muteres to drink wine. So right now, the day that he heard there's no inui nefesh, he has no more right to be shoyel. He cannot be made fair. However, that's the point. The imkoidim zrikom harei zeh yofer. Bamet varam amurim b'taglachas taharom. No, and by the way, what will happen? What happens if he nullifies her vow? She won't have to shave her hair. In other words, she was never a nazira. If she made a vow and she became tummy. So now and she's bringing the karbanis of Tumah. What happens when she brings the karbanis Tumah? She's not allowed to drink wine afterwards because after you resolve the Tumah, Danny, you're back into the days of the Nazirus. You have ahead of you the Inui. Then yes, Yafat, Afa Pisha Karbanis Tumah, because as we'll learn, when she becomes tummy, all of the prior days are deducted, and she's still, as long as she's bound by a vow not to drink wine, the husband can be mafed, and the maila will be that both men and women have to shave their hair, which is something that, God forbid, it's manavel a person, which is why these arrogant.
Enough of a reason or no?
Yeah, the drinking of the wine. The wine, yeah. Very good. Halacha Perikei, the final chapter today has 21 halachas, And here we're going to start going into the
What if
details.
someone had a wife had a separate neder that she won't drink wine, and he wasn't.
That if he was Mekayim it.
And now she's also allowed to drink wine.
Yeah. By the way, every case is a case. You have a woman like a man can become an alcoholic. That's the end of the, and that's the typical reason why they made a neder. They felt that they were unable to control themselves with alcohol, but if they made a vow, they kept their vow. So now we're going to go into the details of the three big dinim of a nazir, which is he may not shave, she may not shave during the days. They may not have any product that comes from a grapevine. The din is that they may not contaminate themselves to corpse tumah. There are many details to all of it. We're going to learn a lot in this chapter about if they did violate, how many you get, and as we'll have scenarios that you can become tummy one time for one act of tumah. How many? I think we'll have at the end of the chapter. You'll be chai 4 sets of malchus. So let's go, beginning with halacha al. Says the Rambam, shloisha minim asurim lenazir. These are the following matters that are forbidden to the nazir. There are 3. Tumah, that's the seder. Corpse tumah. Tiglachas, during the days of your vow of nazirus, you may not shave your hair. And during the days of your nazirus, you may not partake hayotzim and agefen, from any product of a vine. Now, not grape, vine meaning whether it's the fruit or whether it's the waste of the fruit, as we'll see, Danny. In other words, how do you call the peel? How do you call the seed? The seed is not the grape, but it's geffen. You know, it's part of the grapevine. Abel, however, don't think that Nazirus is regarding alcohol. No, it's regarding grapevine, which includes wine. Yeah, wine, you can't drink wine. But can you drink a vodka? Yes, you could. But when it comes to any other alcoholic beverage, for example, beer made out of dates, beer that's made out of figs, or beer made out of today hops or any type of grain, however they make it, mutter linozit, gele, weisse, you can have it. The sheikhar zeh shenesar batoira, you should know that sheikhar can be interpreted as an alcoholic beverage. Not here. The prohibition is on something that has some wine in it, or it comes from a grape product. Halacha number 2. What's called hayotzim and agefen keitzav nazir she'achal k'zayis min ha'pri. If he ate either a k'zayis from the grape itself, which is either anav and lachim, fresh grapes, yaveshim, raisins, boisid is underdeveloped grapes. This is all grape. Or if he has a k'zayis, what we call mipsoiles hapedi. What's the psoiles hapedi? Zagim are the peels. The klipa chitzoino. Grapes are used for klipas noiga because the Rebbe spoke about this. Grape is the only product in nature that you can see through the peel all the way to the inside, which is exactly what klipas noiga does. It doesn't completely block. Oy chartzanim or seeds, and behema pnimim. That's what's inside. The Rambam is writing this because, like we mentioned, there's some achloikas. What the word zag, yaron in modern Hebrew. What is zagin? Chartzanim. The seed. So today, modern Hebrew follows the Rambam. There are other Rishonim that interpret it the opposite. So the Rambam wants to make it clear. Chartzanim is the inner seed. Then you get malchus. And likewise, if you drink wine, and when it comes to drinking, the shir is a revius. Or what happens if you have coagulated wine? Now it's hard. Now it goes back to the shir of eating. Now it's about a kazayis, rapri. Or listen, if you drink even a revius of vinegar, but they were speaking about wine vinegar. But what are we excluding? Aval ha'alin, grape leaves, v'halulavim, the tender shoots that are edible, umei gefanim, grape sap, v'hasamadar, we're speaking about grape buds. No, it's boiser, is more developed than samadar. This is already called motarim lenazir. Why is that? Because we don't call this piri. We don't call this soilless piri. We call this eitz. And you should know that in the Gemara, that was the prat, klal, uprat. There's a whole limud how we excluded the last category in halacha base. Halacha gimel. Now let's go into shiurim. Call isura yagaf mitzvah from zemzem.
Clear. If he violates this, like he has more than a kazayis or a dias, so he gets malchus and he has to start over.
No, he doesn't. Wait. It's very complex. Halacha gimel. By Tuma, yeah, but the other ones no. For example, in the same category, in Boiser, V'chartzanim, V'zog, which we're combining Pri and Psoilus Pri. And only all together do you have one Kazayas. Yes, you'll be Chayiv Malkus. You don't have to mix them together. You can have a quarter of a Kazayas first from a grape, another quarter of a Kazayas from the raisins, etc. Obviously, but Zman Achilas Paras, like it. For example, a very important halacha. What happens if in the wine you have davash? Now, normally when it comes to Isurei Torah, right, remember the nice tam bin b'she'ena. So even though shekam hakoil tam yayin, and you drink a revius, but you don't have a revius of wine, v'shosem and ataroives, or v'chein hatzimukim, you have raisins that were pressed together with dried figs, that was like kimina go'ilam, and how much raisins? So much that it all tastes like raisins. And you ate from the mixture only one kazayis, but that one kazayis wasn't only from the raisins. You won't be chayiv malchus. But 1 second, now you have to halk up. Okay, fine. You can have a mixture. You have to have a kazayis of the raisins. Then what happens if there was so much figs that when you had in three beitzim volume of figs, you didn't even have one kazayas of raisins. You can't be chayiv malchus. Why can't you be chayiv malchus? Because eating means eating achilas pras. The Rambam just paskin. Achilas pras is based on a loaf being made out of 6 eggs. Achilas pras is 3 eggs. So if you don't have within 3 eggs a kazayas, you ended up eating a kazayas, but beyond the time of achilas pras. It has to be b'chtei shalosh beitz. And you ate k'shalosh beitzim, k'shar yisrael ma'zeh mochel adam, then you'll be chayiv.
He's chayiv because
he ate 1 kazayas of raisins full of ibitoich zman achilas pras.
He didn't taste it,
even though he didn't taste it. There's no bittul. Why is there no bittul? Because anything that can become permitted is not bottle. And nazirus can become, you can nullify nazirus. You soak your bread in wine, and you had in the bread, you had a full revius, but on how much bread? In a half a loaf of bread, and the shalosh bakes, and you did have the whole revius, and you ate kedei pras, then you'll be chayiv malchus. Anything that has been seeped in grape wine, the Torah says don't have. That's what we are referring to. Oh, 1 second, Danny. It has to have a taste. 1 second, maybe there is bittul. It has to have a tam kitama yayin. The son of yayin v'chayitzu bedvash. Very clear. And the and the dough no longer tastes like yayin, no longer tastes like wine. You have a min b'she'enoi minoi. This is a bona fide bittul, not deroiv. There's no tam anymore. Then harei mutal anozid, because this cannot be worse than dam or like chaylev. How can it be worse, Taka? Isur kares. If chaylev or dam gets mixed and it's so bottled, then you're not going to be chayv kares. Halacha zayin. Choy by tam yayin, but the ein shom revius b'chtei pras. In the have a revius hareza asur midivrei soifrim. Now, what's very interesting is that normally, what do we say? Normally, we have an issue of chatzi shir. We don't say it over here. Here we say that's called in the Gemara. That's called ta'amoy v'loy mamoshay. You have the tam, but you don't have the mamoshes. So here we hold you only chayv in the rabbanon, and there makanoisay im achal makas mardus. Halacha 8. Nazir she'achal kazayis anav, and another kazayis of chartzim, and another kazayis of zog, and another kazayis of raisins, and he drank a revius of wine, and afilu sachat eshkol b'shasam men revius, which is also called yayin, by the way. It's not it's not a fermented wine, but it's called yayin. So the din is, guys, wow, that's called, even though it is min echad. Why is it called min echad? Because it's called hayotzim yayin, but it's called shtei shemois. The fact that people give each type another name, this is called another. That's called simukin. That's called yayin. Shtei shemois, even though it's min echad, you're chayev al kol shem v'shem. Chamish malkius. Shekolech meyem belav echadu. The Torah gives another name for it. Now there's another detail. B'chlal, since the Rambam began the series by saying that Nazirus is included in a Nidrei Isur, if a person violates Nidrei Isur, the last segment, simple, much simpler, Shavuos, there's 4 types. Here's one type, Layachal Devari Malkes, you will also be Chayva 6. It doesn't exclude that. Now, you're not going to be Chayv for each type another Layachal Devari. Here we combine them together. For all of these different Kezesim, you Chayv once for Layachal Devari. Achal kezayis zog, a kezayis anovim, like Yishtayim, achaz v'shum zog, v'achaz v'shum anovim, and v'achaz v'shum layachal devarei. Now the Rambam goes on. Let's bring it further. If a nazir shaved his hair, if the nazir became tummy, right? So you can say shaving the hair is only one lav. Yes, it is. But you also will be chayiv malchus for layachal devarei. So for each one of these, you're going to be chayiv twice. So like Yishtayim, achaz alo isra meyuchad boy. And or if he drank these two, you're only going to be chayv one. Why? Because here the Torah she'ein kasav yayin lo yishta chaymetz lo yishta. If the Torah would have written these words yayin lo yishta chaymetz lo yishta, right, Danny, in the Torah specifies Chartzanim. The Torah uses these words. The Torah specifies. If the Torah would have formulated the verse this way, you would be chayv twice. But the Torah, how does the Torah formulate this lav? Chaymetz yayin, chaymetz sheichar, koloimer lo yishta hayayin v'ledover shel hayayin v'asheichar. That's the meaning of this verse, not to separate them. And v'hoyel v'loi kafel ela hachaymetz, which is shame echad, ein oloika al zeh b'fnei atzmai v'al zeh b'fnei atzmai. Halacha yud. The whole day, a lot of wine. A nice term. From God's perspective, for every devious you're chayiv, but in a human court, you're only like a achas mishum yayin, and the other one of layachal devari. As we learned, that you get the layachal devari separate. However, that you only had one hasra. So since you only had one hasra, even though you drank many devious in. And if God knew that you knew, even though it's la'achar kedei dibur, you'll be chayv for God. But a Beis Din doesn't know that. But that's because there was no hasra. But if they gave you a hasra in between every single revius, then you'll be chayv malchus for every hasra. The im hisru boy, I'll call it revius. So I'm like, al tishtem, v'shoyse chayv kol achas v'achas. Kama and nukuda. Now, the divrei soifrim she'asur lenazir la'amid b'moishav v'shoyse yain. A nazir may not sit where people are drinking wine. Not only you can't sit there, you should stay far away. Because that's what wine is. Some people, when it comes to alcohol, it's mamish. If it's there, they're going to do it. Amru chachamim, that's the famous expression. Saviv lakarem lo yikra. Don't even get near a vineyard. Halacha yudal. Let's go to the next. Nazir shegilach sa'ara achas. A nazir cuts off even one hair. So by Hilchas Shabbos, what did we learn about one hair? One hair is not called a problem, right? Of goizes, if I remember correctly, right? Then it was 2 hairs. Not so by Nazirus. 1 hair, you violated. That's the sheer like. I don't care if you if you cut it with a razor, cutting it near the scalp, as we'll see, or with a scissor. No difference. Even though the Torah says ta'ar. Ta'ar means near the scalp. Yeah, scissor, yeah, but only if it's all the way at the root. But furthermore, even if you ripped it out, you're chayv malchus, because you ripped it out all the way from the ikara. The echad amegalech v'echad amazgalech, another than both the one who's doing the shaving and the one who got shaved, both of them knew and they were involved, active, passive. Shenemar tar le'yavol al roishoy. But if they cut off, you got a number 3, maybe a number 4, whatever the number is, that you can still bend it over. There's enough hair. The length is long enough to bend it over and to have the tip touch the ikir. Halacha yud beis.
Also, by the guy who gets a haircut, they shave his payas and things like that. They're both chayiv.
Both chayiv.
Hever
al roy shoy sam. What happens if you remove it not through a tat, not through a scissor, not through plucking? But you remove it by putting this type of potion that burns through the hair, and the hishur sorry taken made you bald. Eino loike, gewaldig. All right. Why is that? I'll tell you why. So the Gemara says like this, that at the end of your Nazirus, you have a mitzvah to do teglachas. we're going to learn that using some in the fulfillment of the mitzvah is ineffective. So now we make this comparison, we make this hekesh, something that's not good for you to fulfill the mitzvah is not bad for you to be in violation. There's a consistency. Even though you're mevatel mitzvah say, the Torah says, God will tell us, if you shave this hair, like we learned before. You cut off many, many hairs. You chayiv one, but the im hisrabai al kol sara v'sara, and every time you're about to cut another hair, they tell you al tegaleach. And this chacham got the saginor migaleach loika al kol achas v'achas. So the point is, guys, this is the key. When you violated one shame, if there's only one hasra'ah, you're only chayiv achas. If you violated many shemais, even though it's mimin echad, you're chayiv al kol achas v'achas. Halacha yudalid. What happens if a nazir choyfev esari is scrubbing his ear with his hands, or he's scraping his scalp with his nails, and while he's doing that, a hair falls off? Ein choishish, this is no problem. Sharei ein kavanos elahashir. And there's no psikration. Those davar she'ein mischaven and the efshar sholayashir. However, avalo yisrik b'masrek, because when you remove something with a comb, a hair will fall off. Even though it's not your intent, but it will happen. Don't use earth as a shampoo, because but if you did it, you're not going to be chayiv malchus. Why won't you be chayiv malchus? Because it's like putting on some, even though you're not allowed to do it. But as we said, any type of hair removal that's not good enough for you to be mekayim the mitzvah of tiglachas after you finish your nazirus is not called a violation of the law of removing your hair. Halacha tes vav nazir shenit malameis, and now he's tamei for the full 7 days. Right now we're going into the third. It's interesting the order that Rambam counted this as the first in this chapter, but when he goes through, he goes on the opposite seder. Guys, we're gonna have him paid exayin. We're going to have in the later chapter, right, types of tumais for which you're going to have to be migaleach, and we start being betumai she'ed migaleach aleim. Wow, I want you to know, just for example, if a nazir touches a revi'is dam min hameis, he's tamei tumas meis, but there won't be the teglachas hatuma regardless. You know what? He was Tommy Tumas Meis. As far as this malchus, he'll be like it. Same thing. What happens if he becomes Tommy many times over? Because God knew if you knew, but ain't days in malchus. It's one shame, one hasra'ah, one malchus. However, then mamish consistent with above. Why every time for Asra you became Tameh and you removed yourself from the Tumah, and then you touched it again, or then you carried it again, or then you went under the oil? But if while you're touching the same mace, the mace is in your hand, now you touch another mace, and you were warned, don't be metamel a mace. Now that's nothing. Why? Because he's mechul v'oimet. That's a very important klal.
What's that mean?
I mean, since you are now with your right hand touching a mace number one, touching a mace with the hand number two is nothing. You're not doing anything. It was if I remove myself, Danny, even though I'm tummy, I'm already tummy. So you can argue I'm tummy. I'm not becoming more tummy, but I'm doing another act of being the tummy myself. Here, while I'm holding on to the mace, I cannot do another act. It's garnished. Now, therefore, you have to chap this for Allah Yudches.
But if he's not holding it,
then he's chayiv al kol hasra. If there was another hasra, he'll be chayiv. Now, nazir shenichnas labayis, and
that's what I claim.
let's go. No, you have all this now. A nazir goes into a house. V'shasham achemei mace, and he knew he can leave. Oy shenichnas la'oyel mace. When he entered there, b'sheda table migdal, because when he entered there, halachically he was not in there. And his friend removed that halachic barrier. Now, another nuance, but it's all connected to halacha yud zayin. He'll be chayiv shtayim. Guys, there's a pasuk that says, al nefesh meis lo yavoi. There's another law that says, Lo yitame lohem b'moisam. But here's the key. Since we said on Halacha Yud Zayin that when you're in contact with the mace, you can't have another contact with the mace. It's only going to be chayv achas, even if you have more than one asra. What do you think happens first, bia or tuma? So it says that Rambam like this. In our case, where they happen at the same time, you'll be chayv too. In contrast, let's learn the contrast, and then you'll chap what we're saying. If you enter a home that has a mace in it, since the din is, the Torah says, like we mentioned, al nefesh mace lo yavai. You know what lo yavai means? Lo yavai means don't fully enter. Bia means fully entering. Tuma means even when your nose went in there, you're tummy. Once your nose went in there, Danny, and you are already in violation of lo yitam alahem b'moisam, and you are in there, it's like you're touching it. You can't be chayv another time. Since because or even only the tips of your fingers or your toes, you are tamei. So once you are already tamei, you cannot be chayv for the other love of al nefesh meis lo yavai. Predicated on halacha yud zayin. It's just like if I'm touching one mace. If at the same time with my other hand or with my foot, I have another halachic contact, even though I was warned again, I'm only chayv achas because I'm already mechulol v'oimet. Even though there are two lavim, so you can argue for every tumah you should be chayv shtayim. You're only chayv shtayim if they came b'bas achas. How can they come b'bas achas? When I went into the house before the person died. Now that he died, I'm remaining there. We're going to see soon how long.
B'bas achas, wouldn't that be a reason not to be mechayev too?
No, fakert isol chalalis b'bas achas. Shvuah chalashul b'bas achas. It's consistent. Now be chayv too. Halacha yutes. Nichnas lo oil meis, oil beis akvaris bishgaga, and the achar shenoida by the hisroi. Now, what happens in such a case? This is similar to the din of the Beis Hamikdash. You have to go out, and you didn't go out. You stood there, you lingered there. Just like the din of someone who's tamei, unbeknownst to him, that enters the Beis Hamikdash. That when you're chayv malchus, if you lingered on for the amount of time that it takes for you to be mishtachava and to be yotz. Halacha chav.
If he left right away,
then he's not going to be chayv malchus at all because it's a shoygik. Halacha chav. Matamas anazir. If you made a nazir tamei, imay nazir mezid, that means that the nazir who was passive was aware, he was able to remove himself from you, but he didn't. Then that hanazir loike. And what about the guy that made him tamei? The Rambam began that the guy right by the haircuts. The guy that made him tamei will not be chayiv on this lav. The lav is not on the guy that's being metamim, but he violated lifnei ivel esita michshel. And by the way, that's not for right now. But lifnei ivel esita michshel only means that if this nazir would not have become tamei otherwise, there was no way this tumah came to you. If he could have become tamei anyways, he's called the Messiah lo evrei avera. But he and for the lav of lifnei iver, you are not chayiv malchus. All right, ain't like an alav lifnei iver. We can call this alav shabachlolos or for whatever other reason. Now, and the one that was matamamezid was takamezid ain't a loikem. You know, it's the metame is only violating lifnei iver. Lifnei iver is a lav for which you're not chayiv malchus. Because it says v'timei roish nizrei, which means he defiles his head. You understand that? Not by the haircut. By the haircut, where the Rambam says it's on both. By the tumah, it's only on the nazir. You find okay, he's tired and he was matam himself. So let's go. So he's also like it because of leisa achar l'shalmei. What does that mean? How leisa achar l'shalmei? Because when you finish your term, you bring the karbanis tana. When you become tamei, you knocked over the prior days. How great is that? Even though you're going to bring karbanis tuma, but you were ma'acher, you delayed the karbanis tana. Now, normally, are you chayv malchus for loisa achar? No. Why? Because it's a lav she'im by maisa. Here you did a maisa. Here you were matama yourself, but also maisa. Great. You made a vow in the Beis HaKvaris, which means that you're right away tamei. So normally, if you made the vow outside the Beis HaKvaris, you would have brought the karbanis at the end of the term. Now you're knocked off the days of the term. You're also chayva because of loisa achar. In this case, he's chayiv lo yatama. He's chayiv lo yachol devare, like we said. That's b'chal for all the darim. he's also going to be chayiv by tuma, dafka by tuma for the new lav loisa achal l'shalmai. And then if in the case where bia and tumas ka'achas, he will also be chayiv mishum lo yava im hoisa bia but tuma ka'achas k'mishum biyarnu gevaldik. Have it to be continued, God willing, tomorrow Shabbos.